We're talking about community.
Yeah.
The Black Pound.
Yeah.
There's been, obviously, in this current climate now, there's which we've been talking about a lot on the podcast and just like other platforms that I've been working with as well.
Yeah.
You know, the uncomfortable conversations that we are having. Actually, before I even get into that, let's talk about this from your perspective, actually.
Yeah.
Being a black man that works at the level that you work at. How, from your experience, have you found it?
So I think, you know, first and foremost, I'm a black man and I'm proud to be a black man. My career and coming through a industry which is predominantly filled with people that don't look or sound like me,
yes,
was always something I was conscious of. And so, you know, very early on, it was, you know, really being able to train my mind to just be very aware and focused on my actions and what I could control. I think in terms of this current situation, it has brought that back to the fore. You know, because I watched that video of George Floyd in bed, I think, when I woke up one morning, and I had snoozed my alarm a couple of times, and I watched that, and my first reaction was, that could be me. And not because I've committed any crime, but simply because I'm black. And that's a fact that we can never escape from, because, you know, the very nature of what's happened here is that, you know, it's not something that's happened overnight. This is systematic and has been going on for hundreds of years. So I think for me, as a black man, I need to now be able to, you know, what I do here in trying to share knowledge and uplift people is all from that conscious place that I know that people of my kind, people in my community, people that I grew up with are perhaps lacking some of this knowledge. And so I'm one that I want to take action, and I want to help people, and I want to be able to spread the knowledge and give some of the, you know, what I've learned in over the, you know, past decade or more to other people so they can benefit from it as well.
Yeah.
But it's an uncomfortable place to be, because I think, you know, it's the kind of elephant in the room which is no longer the elephant in the room. Some people say they don't see color. Well, you should see color, because you see age, you see gender.
Exactly.
And you should see what makes people unique and individual, so you can appreciate what makes them who they are.
Yeah. And in the workplace, like just being in like the circles that you move in, do you see people that look like you?
It's getting better now.
Yeah.
But you know, I've been in this industry for over 12 years, and it's getting better. It's getting better.
Yeah.
You know, clearly it's still disproportionate in terms of what it could be.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it's up to people like me to make it known that it is possible to be in this industry.
Yeah.
You know, to be a black private banker, to be an investment manager, to be a wealth manager, or whatever it is you want to be. So no, it doesn't, you know, look anywhere near how I would like it to look, but I think it is getting better. And I think we need to keep continuing breaking the barriers to make it, you know, more comfortable, I guess.
We speak a lot about ownership and, you know, investing in our own communities and stuff like that. I feel like this is not a hot take, but like in black communities particularly, we in this period have not necessarily been as great as others in putting money back into our own communities. I've always felt like we essentially have felt like fallen the lowest in that. You know, there's like, for example, you know, I give a lot of ratings to Polish people, in fact, actually, because in the area that I grew up in, or in the area that I live in now, I've been there for quite a period of time. Over the last 5, 6, 7 years, they've come there, they've got loads of shops, there's a lot of them congregating around, investing in themselves and doing all of that. And like, I've always felt that we haven't been as good at doing that, but now there's conversations about that. There's conversations about investing in our own communities and stuff. So I asked, how do we go about supporting and building a black economy? And where do we start? Like, how do we pull resource?
So I think this is something that's really close to my heart. And, you know, over the last few weeks, I've been having a lot of conversations with a variety of people in terms of, you know, the systematic approach we take to this. I think first and foremost, just to kind of address some of the sort of concerns I've heard regarding this particular topic. You know, for those people who are threatened by the concept of us saying we need to invest in black businesses in the black community, I think here's my explanation of why that isn't really a problem for you. Because if you're in business and you're any good at the job you do in your business, you welcome competition. You don't hear about competition and close your shop. Okay, so just to put it into context, when you walk into a supermarket and you go down the bread aisle, you see 10, 15, 20 different brands of breads. Some new ones come, some old ones go. That's just a circle of life. Okay, but they are not afraid of the competition. In fact, they thrive from the competition. Our problem as the black community is our black bakers cannot even get on that shelf. So by us saying we need to invest in black businesses, we're not saying close down every other shop. What we're saying here is that we are trying to contribute to the options that are available for the consumer. But not only that, we want to be the guardians of that. We want to be the custodians. We want to be the beneficiaries of that produce. And that's all we're asking for. You know, if you go into any retail park, there's a KFC, there's a Burger King, there are McDonald's. They're all grouped in together. Why? Because the economy is simple, that if you have these sort of services in the place, you drive a certain level of footfall. You all benefit from that level of footfall. So for anybody who hears that, you know, we need to invest in black owned businesses and try and uplift that and becomes concerned, then you're probably not doing a very good job at your business. Because competition should enable you to grow. It should enable you to innovate. It should enable you to thrive. And what we're not saying here is that we want to create black owned businesses that can only ever be consumed by black people.
All right.
That's not where we want to be.
All right.
Because if we do that, we are limiting our own access to the market.
Exactly.
Right. We want to create a product owned
especially
by
as majorities.
Correct.
That would make no sense.
It would make no sense for us to create something and exclude the majority. Because yes,
Callum, you can buy.
Yeah, everybody can buy, right?
I would have anyway. I appreciate you letting me know.
Listen, anybody can buy, right? But so I don't think anybody should hear that and be concerned or alarmed and say, oh, you know, what about my family business and we haven't done anything wrong and therefore this isn't about that. If this is a concern to you, then clearly your business is already shaky and a strong wind will probably blow you over. You need to embrace competition. And this is what we're trying to do. Until we can get some black bakers on that shelf, then we still have work to do to take positive action.
And this, you know what? I was having a conversation with Callum actually. Remember, out of something else we was talking about when I was saying to you that like competition is like it's good for everyone. If one person or just two people are doing something, then that's not great. Like you need more. You need more competition because everyone like thrives on that. Actually, I'm reading 50 Cent's book, and there's a part where he talks about Lamborghini and Ferrari, and he was saying that like how Ferrari had started their business or whatever, and like was making a certain type of car. Then Lamborghini was doing their own thing and making a different type of car, but he wanted something from Ferrari. Ferrari wasn't really trying to give it. Then he was like, you know what?
I'll make my own.
Yeah, I'm gonna make my own. And what that did was that made Ferrari say, hold on, what? Like, okay, cool. I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. Now look at them both now. 100 years later.
Competition pushes you to do better. So if anything, I think we should all be encouraging this, to have more option and more choice in the marketplace. You know, I think there's some research which was conducted by the IPA, which is the Independent Practitioners in Advertisement, in 2016 about, you know, how much is the black spending power in the UK, and the figure was somewhere around 300 billion. I'm a bit skeptical about that number because I've also seen those reports go back as early as 2012. So, you know, between 2012 and 2016, I imagine that 300 billion is probably a lot more. And more importantly, 2020, I imagine that figure is definitely a lot more. So, you know, I think we need to kind of get some data on what that really looks like. That would
be so interesting because it would be interesting to look at the pie of where that money essentially is going. I mean, we will never know like exactly where, but when you talk about like, you know, clothes or you know, furniture or whatever it may be, just to see the percentages of where that money is going.
Absolutely. I mean, it will definitely be interesting. I think for us as a community, that's where we need to start. You know, we really need to reimagine the economics of our people and how we work and what we want to put in place. I think, a lot of these things about investing in our businesses, it isn't just a question about, putting things on the shelf for the sake of it. But I think we have to uphold the standards that everybody does, as a business. But we do have to acknowledge that we're trying to perhaps do this at a time where we do have a global crisis happening at the moment.
Yeah.
So we need patience.
Yeah.
I don't want people to kind of have a knee-jerk reaction to this and they don't see the immediate results and think, this is never going to work, because at the moment there are well-established companies who are struggling, and most of us are probably coming to this from an early stage, and so we have to be patient with this as well.
I think also as well, we need, as you said, we need patience. I think that we need to also try to keep a certain perspective as well, that like sometimes it might mean that, if I go and I get something from a black-owned business or whatever, there could be a chance that it might be a tiny bit more expensive than it is somewhere else. But that being expensive doesn't mean that this person is trying to profit off you in a bigger way. It's because sometimes of how much money they may have to spend on the small bulk that they're getting. So for example, a better way of putting it, this is just one scenario, is that if I'm starting a clothing company, and I want to go to the same place that another clothing company goes to, but they're well established, they've got a lot of bankroll, whatever, they can go to the manufacturers and say, you know what, I want this t-shirt, and I want 70,000 of them. So with that, you're going to get it for a lot cheaper. But I might want the same quality, but I can't get 70,000 of them because I don't have that type of money.
Sure.
I might only be able to get 5,000 of them,
Yeah.
which then means that I'm going to end up spending more money on it, which then means I might have to charge a little bit more.
More money per unit.
More money per unit. So it doesn't mean that, this is because I'm trying to, because sometimes I think that we can be very quick to look at that and think, you're my, you know what I mean? We come from the same place and you're trying to bump me. But there's a process in order to build the economy in the way that we want it to, in the way that we want it, and in the space that we want it. And sometimes it means that we might have to do that at times.
I think what people need to do is really learn how to remove the emotion from the economy.
Yes.
Because like you said, if you're a business owner and you're trying to survive and you're trying to offer a service, you have to think about your cost of doing business. And so whatever you sell, you price accordingly. And it's not a conversation about, we're from the same place and therefore your product shouldn't cost this much. I'm sorry, but that's not a metric that you put into your business plan, that, we're from the same place and therefore I should be cheap or cheaper than the next person. I think part of this, and there's an interesting question actually to ask you, but with everything that's happening, Chucky, do people want equality or independence?
People want equality. I feel that people want equality. I think where it becomes tricky is, how do you truly measure equality? Because in equality, that means that sometimes I'm not going to get it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I'll give you a specific example. So let's just say in the context of, maybe more women wanting, a level playing field in a certain workspace or whatever it may be. So what that might mean is, okay, cool, I look at who is best for the job. And so with that and the equality state level of it, it's like, okay, cool, it just means that I'm going to pick this person over you. So we need to be able to measure what equality actually looks like. Because sometimes I know that there are times where something hasn't gone my way because of the way that I've looked, or because of the place that I've come from and people feel like I might be a certain type of way. I know that for a fact that has happened. But also, I know it sounds mad, but it's like, I want equality 100%, but I don't want to be exempt from not getting it, from not getting that thing. If I'm not good enough, I'm just not good enough in it. And that's great for me, because that makes me think, okay, cool, I need to come back and do X, Y, and Z to be better. Providing that it's on the basis of equality. So that's a conversation in itself, in how do we truly measure equality once we have it.
Yeah.
So equality, independence, I don't know, I guess there's independence in there as well, a lot of, in some senses, but for me, independence in what sense?
The reason I asked that question is because I think the two are very different things.
Yeah.
And with everything that's happening right now, what I think we need is a uniformed objective, something that we are trying to achieve together. And once we have that, then we have clarity. We can then plan. We can then put a strategy together in terms of how we achieve it. If it's just about equality, then we're talking about systematic political reforms that will ensure a level playing field. My concern is that for our community, we have a level of dependence and we are not self-sufficient enough that even if something is equal, we are still very reliant on somebody else to kind of bring us to the table.
So are you essentially saying that we need independence, or it would be great to work on independence, and which then kind of moves to the equality stage because then we're ready for it?
I think so.
In some way.
Absolutely. So I guess what I'm saying is, not necessarily let's go and build our own island.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I think once we start working on being self-sufficient, within that process itself, we start creating opportunities that make us less reliant on other people giving us handouts. I think the time of asking for permission is over. Everything that we're trying to achieve now, I think we have the resources, the knowledge, the contacts within ourselves to at least make a start. When we're talking about the economy, what does a good economy need to flourish? It needs a good labor market. If we're saying that we're going to build our economy, we're creating jobs. Right. So all of a sudden, when we talk about equality, well, if we're now the custodians and the owners of the things we consume, we can kind of govern, how that works. Okay. And what we need is exchangeable, so the goods and services. And then we just need capital. We need working capital. So a lot of what we're trying to achieve here, if it is about independence or being self-sufficient, requires a financial stimulus. And that's an important part of this that we can't ignore, because what I'm concerned about is we have all these small pockets of initiatives that are happening at the moment, but it doesn't truly address the core of how you build a sustainable machine that could actually run a city, if you like. Think of it like a game of Sims where you're building a town. Okay, who have you got in that town to deliver the services that town needs to survive? Okay, if we can get to a point where we can point fingers to everybody that can deliver service in that town, then we're building up our economy that way. Right? We've got the services and the products and the people behind it who can offer those services. I think the challenge is, unless people are quite sure what they're looking for, some people are quite happy, Chuck, to say, I just want to be treated equal and just get on with my day, and that's it. But some people are fighting for this black pound. Some people are fighting for us to say that we want more ownership. I always say that there's a lot more money made in the shadows than in the limelight. Okay, how do we now shine a light in the dark, in the shadows? How do we let people see what goes on in there around the ownership? To be the real custodians, to be the owners of this globally exportable culture that we have that unfortunately we currently don't own.
How can we own certain things without having a level playing field with trying to get it?
Is by building it. And this is where this conversation for me, and this is an open invitation, but to sit down with our leaders and our influencers and people who've got the buying power and the resources to say, okay, let's reimagine what we want a fair society to look like for us. This isn't a question about putting plasters over wounds. This is about reimagining it completely and saying, how do we build this from scratch? Okay, and like I said, we're going to need patience. We're going to need trust. It's not a question about, make space for us here. We're going to build our own. Okay, and going back to that point about this isn't trying to overthrow anybody else, but what we're trying to introduce is more competition and more choice. Right? So that's the elements there.
Got you. Another one on this, which was what financial effects do you think the injection of the black pound in black owned businesses will have on various industries, and how do you think these changes will influence social change with the black community and large companies in the long term?
So I think the black pound, as I said earlier on, it's still trying for us to establish exactly how strong that is, because the information that's currently out there, I don't know how accurate it is. I think is a bit dated. If you look at what's happened with our culture in the last few years, how widely that's been exported and how well people are doing, I think our buying power is much stronger than perhaps what's currently being documented. I think the impact of us doing this is that it's definitely going to create an initial surge. Okay, if we're saying we're going to focus on uplifting other black-owned businesses and trying to circulate our money in our communities for longer, that's going to create an initial surge. For most businesses, when you're trying to grow a brand or a business, it's very rare that you do that with your working capital. You need an injection of funds. The problem at the moment is that, if you look at, say, a lot of these black-owned businesses, some of them don't have the resources to even put themselves in front of the mass market. Marketing budgets aren't cheap. So there are probably a lot of black-owned businesses that you have to really search far and wide before you can find it. So I think there's an element here as well about growth. If, let's say, for example, there's talk about the Black Pound Day.
Yeah, which is the 27th. Yeah, of June.
Okay, so that's going to create an initial surge to these companies. And that, therefore, is going to create, if you like, pressure on their supply. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I know lots of people who become a victim of their own success, and the business is doing so well that they've had to close because they couldn't cope with it, and machines started breaking, they couldn't afford to repair it, etc., etc. So there's that element to think about. What we really need to do here is think about the kind of system behind it. How do we create access to funding for these people? How do we create the sources where people can go to, whether it's a building society, whether it's a bank, whether it's a fund, who can have that financial capital to support these people through real growth, so that these brands that we are now putting in the spotlight can cope with the demand that's about to hit them.
Yeah, just hearing you talk here, I was actually going to tweet something and I saved it. Let me see if I can find it. But I was curious to find, and this is just it's just a curiosity. Yeah. So and it's not that anyone has to do this. Let me see if I can find it. It just jogged my memory right now. I'm sure it's here. Oh no. But yeah, I was just sort of like lying down one day and I was thinking to myself, we've got a lot more black millionaires than that now. Like we've got a lot of people that's making a lot of money in that. And I wonder if some of them, not that they have to, but I wonder if some of them are having meetings behind closed doors in strategizing how to invest in some of these businesses.
I would really like to think that's what's happening, but in truth, is that what is happening? I don't know. As I said, I think this is a time where we're being driven by emotion. I think there are a lot of people with heavy hearts out there who want to see change, but if you have all that passion and no strategy, you end up with frustration. I don't want us to get a few years down the line and all the people who've gone out there and sort of demonstrated their frustration and cry for change, all the people who've died at the hands of brutality or inequality, I don't want any of that to be in vain. I don't want us to get down a few years and it just became a thing and we're still back at square one and we still don't really have any sort of pulling power and we're still here effectively. So like I said, I think there does need to be a joined up approach here. There needs to be some conversations, because look, before you introduce anything, there's always a consultation phase. You don't just jump straight into a solution. I think you need to be considered. You need to take a step back, reimagine the whole thing, right? Have conversations around the table with some people who've got the resources, the knowledge, the power, and then try and figure out, right, what do we do as a unit? What do we do together here? Where do we start? What things do we address? Is it education? Is it trade? How do we uplift our communities? Like you said, there are enough millionaires who are ethnic minorities now that you think the places that we grew up from, surely we should be finding ways to uplift that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
But it isn't happening enough. And so, and I appreciate that sometimes when people make their money, they're very cautious about doing anything that's going to impact that. Yeah. And so perhaps maybe they're guarded by that and their image and their commitments and their endorsements and everything else, that they don't want to step out of line. But ultimately, until we pull everybody through here, we are still going to have that disparity. There are some communities who probably do this much better than us, and you mentioned some.
Yeah.
And it's a question of, well, why is it that they're able to do it, but we can't?
But like, let's be honest. I think some of it is the way that we're conditioned, man.
I don't think we trust each other enough.
No, we don't.
We don't trust each other.
We don't. We just think. I think that we just, in the back of our mind, just think, you're just gonna fuck it up.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, you're just gonna fuck it up.
Yeah.
And so you may not think it with those words.
Yeah.
But that is the reason why there's a lack of it. Because really, when you think about it, you just mentioned, you know, well, how much billion did you say? It's
so 300 billion.
Okay, so that could be dated. Okay. So it could be more, but it could be a little bit less, whatever. Yeah, but I think it would probably, if it was dated, I'm going to assume that it's more. Yeah. So there's a lot of money that's being spent, which means that it's like all that needs to happen is an element of it being diverted in a certain place. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that for us, we have to like unchain our minds into thinking that like we're gonna fail.
I just think we can't be making public demands for change until we're ready to change ourselves.
Yeah.
Right, because otherwise this is falling on deaf ears. And you know, as I said, the time for asking for permission is over. This is the time where we take our own destiny into our own hands now, because there are enough of us in places of influence with knowledge and expertise and experience and resources that we can pull together. It just needs to be a joined up approach, because the problem with having different pockets here and there is it starts becoming an internal competition of who can be the first to do it. And before you know it, that whole trust issue resurfaces and we're saying, oh yeah, they didn't do a good job of it. You know, you can't plan backwards. You can't set up a shop front until you actually have a business. It doesn't make any sense, right? So we do need to be considered. Let's take our time with this. The problems we're facing, or the problems that have resurfaced, has always been there through our lifetimes for hundreds of years. So we're not going to fix it overnight.
No.
We're not going to fix it overnight. But what we do need to commit to is that sustained approach that we are going to make a change. And we can't ask for change unless we're willing to change. I think you and I need to trust each other. I need to be able to call you and say, Chucky, I need £100,000 because this is the new project we're doing, and these are the benefits of it, and this is what we're going to make happen. And I need to be able to say, fine, I trust your opinion, I know your credentials, and let's make this happen. It's just, it doesn't happen. When I was growing up, I used to always see that whenever someone from our community was photographed with somebody from outside our community, the first thing was, oh wow, you've blown.
They've made it. Oh bro, can I interrupt you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I saw there was an artist, right, 4 years ago, had posted a picture of their team, and it was a girl, and everyone, like the lawyer, the entertainment lawyer, the A&R, everyone that played a role in it was just not black, other than the artist, And looking at it, like everyone in the comments was like, "Oh my god, sick, whatever. You're gone, you're gone." But in my mind, I was looking at it and I was thinking, what this person doesn't realize is that they are essentially showing you that this is what success looks like. Do you get me? And you may not be conscious of it when you look at it, but that now another artist who's striving to do X, Y, and Z wants a team like that. They want their team to look like that, because that's what success looks like. And so, I think that that is something that maybe now elements of that has changed a lot. But I feel like we need a lot of work on that. But I feel as well, just before we move off this topic, that the Black Pound idea of it being on, the 27th and stuff, I think the idea of it is really good. But I think that we just need consistency. So, having one day is amazing, but we need essentially, we need more than the one day. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, but like I said,
but one of the things that I think can be really beneficial out of that is that could be a day that you start doing research to find out who's actually doing what, and finding businesses that you just didn't know existed. The other day, actually just yesterday, I was doing something with Mo the comedian, and he told me about a beard oil company called by Aaron Wallace. I didn't even know about it. I looked at the thing, looked really good. Went on the website, looked at the ingredients that they had, and I was like, "Raw, I'm in. I'm in now because I'm part of this big thing now, and this is now where I'm very likely to get my beard oil from.
Yeah.
Whereas I was probably just went down to the the local
cosmetic
shop, whatever,
yeah.
the check boss man and said, yo, what can I fling in my beard, boss? You know what I mean?
But Joe, that goes back to the point I made about the fact that we have to really look at the ecosystem and not just the initial impact here.
Yeah.
Because like I said, there are probably a lot of these black owned businesses that don't have the resources to advertise themselves so that everyone's aware of who they are. And so, until we're able to help people to achieve that funding, to grow their business, to try and get it in front of people, then there are perhaps still going to be a lot of companies who are going to miss out even during this Black Pound Day, because you have to kind of know about them to know about them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, and I've had loads of conversations the last few days about people thinking about building platforms that we can try and make this, a more of a marketplace and everything else like that. But like I said, there needs to be a conversation, I feel, still, where we talk about these things and say, what is our objective? What is the collective objective? What is the collective aim? Because I don't want all this passion and enthusiasm to go to waste or be in vain. And in a couple of years' time, nothing's changed.
Yeah, nothing's changed. And also, just to reiterate as well, this is not about us segregating ourselves. This is us about trying to be a part of the competition, as you said. And you know what? If you feel as passionate about it as we do, or even a little bit, then join in.